Welcome to One Bad Podcast. Here's your hosts, KD and Shaner.
KD, we've been teasing this for I don't know how many episodes now, but we ended the last episode talking about choosing Satellite Hotel, and it was a hit. So we started playing arenas in this era. I have a vivid memory of jamming one night, and then on the way home, you got an email saying, can you be in I think this is like a Friday, and it was like, can you be in Penticton on Tuesday to open for Def Leppard?
Yeah, and I remember that, and what a great feeling too, like that sense of excitement. Yeah, because we just got home from a tour. Remember, we just got home from a headline tour, and I think we were gone for maybe like a month or something. So got home, back to our girls or whatever, back to our quote unquote normal lives, and then the email came like literally. I remember we woke up and it was like the next day after we got home. Can you be in Penticton, your first arena tour? And it was just like it was like pure elation, and like anything, like any first, right? It's like there's only one. And our first arena tour, I mean, that was amazing. It was like Def Leppard. I think we always said, you and I always had that vision of OBS is meant for arenas. I think we knew it from day one. It wasn't like we started off just thinking our music was meant for clubs. Like we wrote music for arenas, and then we finally had that shot, and well, you start off, but I think it lived up to the expectations. I mean, arenas, to me, it's like you get a little taste of it, and that's all you want to do for the rest of your life,
Yeah. Well, and you're right, man. We did, I think, no matter how much success we were getting, you and I talked about this a lot about how, we're an arena rock band. That's what we loved. Like growing up, all our favorite bands, like, you love the club days and all of that, but we're watching all those Soundgarden videos and PJ videos of playing these massive festivals and arena shows, and like that was the version of rock and roll that was in my head. My first concert was AC/DC, and that Ballbreaker tour was like, that was it for me. Like that's where we were trying to get. And it's funny that we've never really talked about this, but I've always wanted to ask you about, obviously we got there and it was a bit of a whirlwind because it was like, holy shit, we got to go, I think they were half-hour sets. So it was like, try to figure out, I think probably 5 or 6 songs to play, and then get there and just, I remember rolling up and seeing all their tour buses, and then our van and trailer. Obviously people in the crowd don't know what's going on backstage. They don't know if we're rolling up in buses or what, because it all looks the same on stage. But it was always funny every night pulling up in the van and trailer. And they're always like, oh yeah, go around the those 3 tour buses and back in there and drop your TVs off. So
I remember the first, I remember the and none of us, I didn't feel embarrassed about it. It was kind of like almost like a badge of honor that we'd show up with so little and then bring such a big show. But I think they had like several tour buses, right? And I remember the first time, in Penticton, we got out of our van trailer, and the Def Leppard guys looked out. One of them, I think it was maybe Joe Elliott, walked out of his bus, which is probably like the bus is all for him or something. And he walks out and sees us in this like rinky-dink operation, and we're just like, hey, we got our ripped jeans and our our plaid shirts, and it's like, we're gonna do this. And I think, and later on, I mean, I think all of us did at some point, but I had the honor of like chatting with him a bit, and he was like, oh mate, he's like, it's been great. It's been great. It's great to watch you guys. I can tell you're at that level where we were, where you're young and hungry, and coming up. And, I think he had a lot of respect for us. You know what I mean? Because we brought it every if we were rinky dink in our van and trailer and on stage, that'd be different. But we were only in the van and trailer. We brought it on stage, and I think we gave I remember just going all out every night on stage. And one of my favorite things was,
how could you not, you know what I mean? That energy of being on a stage like that was like, how could you, I don't know. I felt like there's never been a time we've played shows that big where I thought like I'd get bored of it,
Yeah. Well, and I think like for me, the ultimate feeling was going on stage for the first time and hitting like the kick drum, and it just sounded like a bomb going off. And just, that first cheer after after the first song is finished, and we don't know if it's going to be like booze or silence or worse. And it was just like that crazy scream of like, I think Penticton was maybe 10,000 people or whatever it was, but it's just, I remember like the arm hairs standing up and just that feeling of like, we've made it. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude, that's exactly it. Like for me, I think like the moment that like it really hit was, we got a little visitor back there.
Yeah, we got a third member.
The moment that really hit for me was because we were backstage and they announced us and the crowd cheered when we were backstage like that. Because you kind of get into the zone and you're getting ready for, we'd never stepped out onto a stage like that, but I remember them announcing us and the crowd went crazy. And it just felt like, it's one of those moments is so hard to describe because it was like, holy shit, you're about to walk out into that, and then for me, because the three of you would go out and then I'd come out for like the big hit when the vocals come out. But I'll tell you, every night, that was probably my favorite moment of the entire night, is like, because I got to stand backstage when you and Hicks and Granny walked out and the whole place like erupts. They're ready for a rock show. Like a lot of them didn't know who we were, but there were OBS fans there. But it was just that it was cool because I was both like fan and like I'm about to walk out into this. It was like such a cool moment for me. And you guys would walk out, and I'd always see you put your hand up, and like everyone goes nuts. And then of course, just man, you go on stage and it's such a blur, especially those first few nights. It was like, very hard to describe and hard to put into words just how that feels, because then the energy is just like, it's off the chain. I mean, we were, like you said, you said it perfectly, man. We might've pulled up in that van and trailer, but like, we always wanted to be an arena band, and that was the moment. And we sounded like it and played like it. And it was, man, indescribable is, it's tough to keep using that word, but that's how it felt to me. And then afterwards, you just were like, holy shit, did that just happen? You know what I mean? Like you walk off stage and it was some of my favorite memories were those shows for sure in that era, where it just felt like after all of that work and everything that we put into it, it finally felt like we were tasting some of the stuff that I think we'd been imagining since we were kids.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. Like, I think these days, like so many artists always ask me, and I know they ask you, it's like, how do you get those opening slots, right? And these days, unfortunately, I see more and more of this. So many artists just buy on now it's a buy on situation, right? So you don't have to necessarily earn it. I mean, you have to be decent, I think, but you can just buy on to a tour, right? So you don't really have to have years of touring, radio hits, fan base. Yeah. You just pay money and you're on. Now, not every big band does that in terms of their opening slots, but a lot do. So it's like, we didn't have that option. We didn't have the money to buy on even if we wanted to. But it's like, it was like, I guess a decade into our career, we'd already just toured the country so many times and just blood, sweat, tears, all that stuff. And then, so we got that shot and we could have easily blown it, but we hit it out of the park, I think. And it's like, but it took so many, even beyond us being in a band before that. I mean, you and I putting all the hours in, and same with Hicks and Granny. And, it's like, it was like, I feel like we earned that spot. You know what I mean? And you're right. It was like 30 minutes felt like it literally felt like 2 minutes. And I remember I had the click tracks because, a lot of bands play to the click, or the drummer does at least, just to keep everyone in time. And I remember those shows opening for Def Leppard. It's like the adrenaline was so high, it was basically impossible to stay on the click because I was pushing it. We were all pushing it. And so I would just turn the click off, get a rough idea of where it should be, and then just let it rip, you know. And but it was just pure adrenaline. And I can't remember feeling that much adrenaline, before that, maybe our first ever show or since, because it's just that sort of, because now you get the adrenaline, but it's more, you've done it for so long, you can contain it, right? Whereas back then I was like, we're in an arena, let's fucking go. And just felt like four dudes that, finally had kind of got their got their got step. They're able to step into the ring and take some swings. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Dude, that's a great way to put it. And honestly, like, I wouldn't trade those days for anything because it was super special. And also, like you said, we felt like we earned our way there, right? Like, it was a lot of work to get there. And then I felt like we were prepped because, they were super strict about time. Obviously, like 30 minutes is 30 minutes. And it was like, so I had the clock back there I felt like all the work we'd done and all the shows that we played prepped us for it because we were hungry. We were also like aware of how big of a deal that was. Like so many bands were up for tours like that and one of them gets it. So we weren't going to screw up and be 5 minutes over time and get booted off the tour, which we'd heard those stories. We know bands that have been kicked off big tours like that because they were just, they couldn't stay on time. But we killed it every night, 30 minutes on the nose. I remember the crew they give us props and stuff too, because obviously shows that big, they take a lot to put on. There's a lot of money into that. And like the band, the headliner is why everyone's there. So, you can't just be screwing around as the openers and just, so we brought the professionalism and brought an arena rock show, man. And then, so we had those shows. Subsequently, we opened for, and I'm a little fuzzy on the dates on some of this, but then Judas Priest took us out for some arena shows. And I remember probably one of my highlight moments. I'd love to hear if you have any highlight moments of these shows, but I remember we'd do blues last, and it was either last or second last, either way. It was the big crescendo, and then I hit the big screaming note. And we were in Winnipeg, I think, and Halford was side stage. And I just glimpsed him as I was about to hit that note. And I'll never forget that. I got a little frog in my throat because I was like, oh shit, like Halford's about to hear me scream this note. Luckily, I nailed it, and it was a cool moment. But yeah, those were the times, man, that just felt like all that work was worth it, and that all the drama of like, not even drama, but just the work of like writing and like all the stuff like we've talked about up to this point of picking singles, fighting with the label, like it just all goes away. And you're like, this is the reason we got into it. It's the reason we do it and the reason we love it. Right.
Yeah, man, those are highlights. Like the highlights of our career, and I feel like highlights of my music career was like those arena shows, and I don't know how much time we got, but I want to. We can always do this next too, but I want to talk about like how just the optics of when you're at that level touring arenas and then doing headline tours. I think a lot of people thought we were just like rich musicians, and I want to talk about that. But if we're close to time, let's talk of that next one. If we're how much time we got?
Well, you know what, man? That's probably a good place to start the next episode. We got a couple minutes left here, but we can set that up because you're right. I mean, I don't really blame people for thinking that, like, you see a band playing even a massive festival, you just kind of assume, and we're already now into the social media is kind of really taking off. So it's like, we're posting all the time and then we're on the road all the time. So people assume like that's all you're doing and you're just making big bank and coming home and living it up in your big house. But yeah, we'll definitely get into that more, man, in the next episode. I think that's, we got about a minute on this one, but were there any other kind of highlights from those arena shows or anything that happened or interactions you had that like really stick with you?
Well, one of them, I mean, like, being just a rock historian and a hardcore rock fan, it's like ahead of opening for Def Leppard, I did some research, and found out like Joe Elliott is a big Mott the Hoople fan and Ian Hunter. And so, and I have all those records. So like, I knew that if I had a chance to just like be happening to walk by him, I could like just be like, hey, and shoot the shit about Ian Hunter, and I did that because after the first few shows, we realized like they're not going to come to our dressing room and hang out with us, right? This, maybe they feel like they couldn't or they shouldn't or they're too busy, right? But
Yeah.
So I saw Joe Elliott walking. This is like 5 shows in, and he's walking past. Like, hey Joe, how you doing, man? And he's kind of like, hey. And he's gonna keep walking. And I was like, hey, I heard you're a fellow Ian Hunter fan. And he just like stopped in his tracks, and he was like, oh my god. And then it just right away, like sort of the aura
that's so cool.
or like the facade just melted away, and we're just 2 dudes talking, music and our idols, and so we're talking about like our favorite Mott the Hoople record and song and all that sort of stuff, and so we just sat, and all of a sudden right away he saw me as not just like some fan opening band. He was like, just a buddy talking rock and roll, and he talked about hanging out in the pub with Ian Hunter because they're drinking buddies, back in England. So so it's just kind of cool, like, just to have that. And I've had those moments with other, bigger bands that we may have opened for, just like talking music, and I feel like I could talk to anyone. I'm sure you're the same. I talk to anyone about music pretty much in the world, and I can always connect with someone on that, right? And so that was cool just to be buddies with Joe for a minute, and then a few shows later, he came out to me and he's like, "You guys are doing really good," like, which is like,
I mean, so cool, man.
Small compliment, but it's pretty massive, So, yeah. And then I think after that, I think you and I both probably thought that that was it. We're just gonna do arenas from now on, and that wasn't exactly the case. But any chance?
If only it was that easy, hey?
Yeah, exactly. I remember us definitely talking, and this would be a good way to wrap it. But I remember after the arena tour, you and I talking like, "Hey, well, let's write some more arena hits, and let's make us the headliner at arenas." Which, again, it's if it was only so easy, but we definitely tried our best. Yeah, you got mad respect for those bands that can fill arenas, because you realize, A, it's like one in, whatever, several million. And also B, it's like, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of luck and whatever. But the guys that do it, and Def Leppard is a great example. They still fill arenas to this day, which is like pretty amazing. I got mad respect. Going into that tour, I had respect for them, of course. After that tour, I just had nothing but like love for them, because they were just such good guys, and they're still doing it. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I felt same way about Halford, just being a pro and being chill with us. And we're a little over time on this one, but I'm going to end on my Joe Elliott story. It's I rarely try to, I never know if I should tell the story, because I try not to be a stereotypical singer, but we cross paths backstage every now and then, and I'd wave hey, and we were, some of those arenas are pretty cavernous, and him and I had like this terrible singer moment. It was so Spinal Tap, where we crossed, and he was trying to find his way somewhere, and I was trying to find my way somewhere else. And we crossed paths, and we're like, hey, like whatever. We were at that point where you could at least wave hi, and yeah. 5 minutes later, we met in the same spot, and we were both lost, and we were both like, he's like, fuck.
I bet
it was
you.
Like dude, it was such a like, we can't tell anybody that the 2 singers are backstage, like totally Spinal Tap, like lost, don't know where we're going. Oh man. Yeah, that one lives with me for sure, because I'm like, yeah, we can't tell people, but enough time has passed now.
That's
all right, buddy.
I love that, man.
Let's do it again on the next one.
Okay, sounds good. Peace.
Thanks for listening to One Bad Podcast.